God, I'm telling you, my dogs are barking today.
But man, my dogs are barking.
Well, welcome into the My Dogs Are Barking podcast. My name is Landon. And man, we are less than a month from the college football season starting. And so all fans everywhere are getting excited, thinking their team might just go all the way. Or if they're realistic, there's only like 3 or 4 of those people that are thinking that, or 3 or 4 different fan bases that are thinking that. But today we are talking about the Mississippi State Bulldogs with what I would consider to be one of Mississippi State's most beloved fans, and that is Mr. Noah Mashburn. We're going to bring him in here. Noah was, if I'm not mistaken, was the very first episode that we did of the My Dogs Barking podcast. He was so kind, didn't know me from Adam, but he took time out of his day to hang out with me. So Noah, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. How do you feel? Like I said, we're less than a month. Like what's going through your mind right now?
Man, I am absolutely fired up. It's the time of year where it's so hot out in the middle of the day, and that first morning you wake up where it's just a little bit, not even chilly, just where you can breathe outside. Go ahead and head to Bed Bath and Beyond, get some fall candles, and get rocking and rolling. And there's just so much hope right now. Like you can look at a schedule for anybody, and you can sketch out 8, 9 wins when realistically there's only 2 or 3 there for some people. So, no, I'm very, very excited and excited to be here. As the first time guest was a huge honor. Am I the first reoccurring guest?
Man, you know what? I think so. Yeah, not even Barrett Sallee or
Wow.
Tom Luganbill. Forget those guys.
Yeah, no, so this is a huge deal for your fan base. I know they're
Of
very
course.
excited. Most of them are thinking, "Who the heck is this guy?" But I'm hoping to bring some enlightenment, some smiles, and just talk some ball with my buddy now.
Of course, of course. And Noah, if you don't know where to find him on X or Twitter, man, he's always there to give folks a chuckle. So make sure
Mhm.
you follow him if you don't already. But Noah, looking at this schedule, we're going to go over Mississippi State's schedule and just kind of look at it. I mean, as you mentioned, the season's not here yet. There's a lot of hope that has been
Mhm.
generated around this team. And so as we pull up the schedule here, and just kind of looking up and down. Now, at the given moment, Mississippi State has the second hardest schedule, ranked, I believe, on 3. Projected that. Who knows what all goes into that? But I mean, looking at the schedule itself, that's not really hard to believe. A lot of really difficult games on this schedule. And I was just thinking, as you look at this new SEC and this new SEC format that Mississippi State is going into, man, is there a team on this schedule from the SEC specifically that you feel most confident in getting a win over?
Yeah, I mean, definitely just looking through it, it's a kind of a tough gauntlet. Everybody's thinking that Florida is going to be down. I'm still a little skeptical. I know their coach is a big question mark. But they still have a lot of talent. Definitely more talent than a lot of SEC teams. But the coaching is a question mark. But I think the real answer there is Arkansas. You get them kind of later in the year, late October. Hopefully they'll be down in the dumps. I don't know if old Sam Pittman will still be the coach by the time we play them. So that's the one I kind of feel most confident in. Arkansas and Mississippi State usually play some, not nearly as wild as Arkansas and Ole Miss games, but usually Arkansas and State are close, and no matter who's good or who's bad. But it felt like we've kind of had their number over the last few years. I think last year's game set back college football 10, 15 years. That was the worst college football game of all time. And if you were not a fan of either one of those teams and you still watch that game, then you're a psychopath. But to answer your question in the longest way possible, I think I could do that would be Arkansas is just one that I feel the best in, which I don't feel great about much of them, but if I had to pick one, probably that one.
Yeah, that seems to be the most obvious on paper. And I had this
Mhm,
odd feeling today. I was like, man, I feel like everyone, and certainly me, has kind of written off Arkansas. I was like, we know what's going to happen. Sam Pittman's going to be gone.
mhm.
But I got this feeling. I was like, man, what? Oh, you know what it was? Oh, geez. I don't know if you've seen the clip, but Arkansas's defensive coordinator um, had this like freestyle rap, and
Oh,
as cringy as I thought it was going to be, it was actually like
mhm,
awesome. the team got fired up, and I was like, you know what, this team might turn it all around. But no, on top of that though, I just kept thinking, what if there's something we're not seeing with Bobby Petrino being there? Also, I was with a friend today, and we were talking about this Arkansas team, and he mentioned, if Talon Green, the starting quarterback who transferred from Boise State, if he's anything like he is in the new college football game, Arkansas is going to the playoff. I mean, he's like impossible to stop, when it comes to the game. But yeah, it is kind of an odd deal. Arkansas seems to be one that we're all kind of writing off. Do you see it that way? Like, do you see any sort of hope for them for the season?
Yeah, and the kind of what I was talking about Florida, I think both of them in the same way that people just assume that they're going to stink, and that very well may be true. But I think it's just one, especially being a Mississippi State fan, you can't overlook anybody. And kind of looking at Florida and Arkansas' schedule, Florida, goodness gracious, that is a brutal, brutal, brutal schedule. So Arkansas, I do think you, like you said, that guy is unstoppable on the new college football game. Hopefully, he will not be like that. I always feel like we get some SEC Player of the Week performances against us mostly every week. Just one guy that nobody expects. So I do think they probably can slip on some people. And we're talking about Sam Pittman. They may not be the coach that time of year. Nobody is harder to beat than a team with an interim coach, especially Bobby Petrino. Goodness gracious, that would be terrifying to see him leading them out of out on the field at Davis Wade. So again, I need to kind of do some film study. I'm not going to do any film study. I'm just going to look and see what the spread is the week before, and kind of go from there. But Arkansas definitely could scare you if Bobby Petrino's coming out of the tunnel, I think.
Yeah, especially if he's leading them out on a motorcycle. But as we keep going on, and we look at the schedule that's here and put before us, is there a game that makes you the most nervous? Like, look, playing on the road at Texas and at Georgia back to back
Mhm.
is unbelievable. That's such a
Yeah.
crazy thing to do. But most of us
Mhm.
feel like, okay, that's more than likely a loss. That'd be amazing if
Mhm.
it was not. But is there a game that you go, man, I think we should win this one, or we could win this one, but it makes me nervous.
Yeah, I kind of going on the whole schedule here. We kind of we have a brutal schedule like you talked about, but every home game is a swing game basically to me. So most of those games on the road at Texas, at Georgia, at Tennessee, at Ole Miss even, you're not expecting to win those. So those games that you might can swing, you have Florida, Arkansas, and Missouri at home, and even Texas A&M, who've we've kind of been back and forth every year, no matter if they're the number 3 ranked team in the country or not. But I might surprise you here with this answer, just because I am a gambler and I watch a lot of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night games. September 14th, Toledo is going to be a massive game to me. It should be a game that we're 2.5 touchdown favorites in. They did lose their quarterback. I think he went to Baylor. That was so good. But I think that is going to be a very, very big game early in the season. I don't know if we got the time yet or not, but kind of just screams an early kickoff, or it may actually be a night game. But hopefully, you just got a big win at Arizona State. You got Florida coming in the next week. May not be a big crowd. You see Toledo on the schedule. Oh, we're going to beat them by 50. That's a game that you just need to get out in front early and just survive at the end. But that one definitely is the one. But the Missouri game is a game at the end of the year that I think could be a game that we're going to count as a loss on the schedule before the season starts. And hopefully they'll have a great, great year the entire year. And we can play spoiler where they're coming in against a unranked SEC team maybe, and kind of play spoiler there at the end of the season.
And I'm glad you mentioned Toledo. We had the guys from that podcast on earlier in the season, kind of previewing each team. They're the guys who represent or the representatives for the college huddle for Toledo were the ones from Mississippi State. And as we're talking to them, they mentioned, man, like we did, they lost a lot of people. Daquan Finn, the quarterback, is gone. Running backs were gone, but they start talking about all these guys that are still on the team, and then also some that transferred in.
Mm-hmm.
And we completed the podcast, and then they go and they had another podcast and they preview this game, and I went to listen to it, and they're like, guys, I don't know. I really feel like we could win this game. And it's terrifying. Like you're exactly right. What a hard start that would be to beat Eastern Kentucky on the road at Arizona State is going to be a hard game. It just is. It's a 9
Yeah.
p.m. kickoff. So who knows if they get out of there with a win. if you come home and a week before you start, the hardest gauntlet over the next 4 weeks, you drop a game at Toledo, man, you're in a really tough spot. Yeah, you're exactly right. That
Yeah.
that will be a spread I'm interested to see. I
Mhm.
feel like it's going to be a close spread no matter what.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's like a 13 and a half. That's what I'm gonna think it's gonna be at, and I don't know how I would bet it right now. See how Toledo is the first 3 weeks and kind of go through it. But last year they were terrifying to watch when I saw them on the schedule. And so yeah, most of their good players. I knew their quarterback had transferred and a running back, but I saw they got a bunch of Power Five guys in too. So we'll see.
Yeah, we will, and they open up with some FCS team. So
Mhm.
I'm possibly. I think my hope for Mississippi State is that they're not used to that level of competition right out of the gate. After
Yeah.
playing an FCS team, then coming to Starkville is a whole another deal. But when we think about Mississippi State, this season coming into the season is incredibly unique. There is a similar feeling, and Chad Bumpus, the wide receiver coach, was asked this or talked about this yesterday. There's a similar feeling to when he came in 2009 with Dan Mullen. A lot of
Mhm.
optimism, an offensive coach, a first-time head coach, and an offense that looks as if it's going to be very productive. The defense is a complete other part of the equation. But when you think about this offense, it just what do you pull from it? Like when as we're coming into the season, because Jeff Levy did such great things at every other stop, but
Mhm.
man, to think about Mississippi State being a fast and high flying offense throwing it all over the field, it feels odd. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. It's going to be refreshing to see the ball thrown more than 8 yards down the field, not a little swing route to the running back who gets killed by an SEC linebacker or has to make a move and running for his life. But no, the spring game when there was just some balls. I mean, some of them were incomplete, but it was just like a huge, like breath of fresh air, I guess, when that happened, and it was just it's cool to see. We kind of said behind with some buddies behind the scenes of stuff is if we could just score and if we were getting beat, 55-31, we would take that. I'm thinking this year we may get our wish and see some of that. That I'm hoping that we're at least scoring a bunch because I think we'll be giving up a little bit just because there's so many unknowns and hopefully, hopefully the defense will make a couple of stops in some big games and get us some wins. But it's definitely going to be refreshing to see some up tempo, no huddle, throwing the ball around, running the ball a lot more effectively. And I'm really, really, really excited to see us that first game against Eastern Kentucky. But we can't forget Joe Moorhead's first game that I thought we were the 2012, 2013 Oregon Ducks when we went out there. So definitely want to see some scoring against Eastern Kentucky, and then I want 50 points against Arizona State as well.
Yeah, it is. It's such an interesting deal. You're exactly right. Bringing up the Joe Moorhead thing, but it's odd though. That seemed more like in terms of like what the morale was with the fan base. Um,
Hmm.
Almost a mourning time. Like it's like our girlfriend broke up with us
Yeah,
of however long
exactly.
Dan Mullen was there, and now we got this new guy. And man, he seems great, but our other person left us. This is a different scenario. This seems like
Yeah.
things have been reset, and now we hopefully have some place our offense is going that really
Hmm.
has been before.
Yeah.
It is super exciting, especially thinking of and when fans watch the spring game, the amount of talent at wide receiver. I don't know if we've ever seen that before. And again,
Hmm.
to go back to Chad Bumpus, he said that on draft day he texted Coach Levy and said that this was going to be the last season that Mississippi State did not have a wide receiver taken in the draft, which is
Yeah.
a really bold statement. But
Hmm.
man, how remarkable that would be if it did happen.
Yeah.
Um, Looking at the schedule, I have seen, and I'm sure you have too, predictions going all over the place. And you mentioned, being a Vegas guy. Vegas, I think, has Mississippi
Hmm.
State at 3.5 wins.
Hmm.
Which is on one half insulting, but on another half, you're like, well, I don't know, like where do you get the wins? I don't know. Poor
Yeah.
UMass has to play
Yeah.
like three other SEC teams, so hopefully there's
Hmm.
one there. Is there a particular prediction in your head that you go, man, I'm thinking this is how I go, and feel free if you want to go game by game, you can, or if you go, no, I think this is the record. What are your thoughts?
Well, off the record, just between me and you, I have a substantial bet that we win over 3.5 games because I saw it on a lot of books at a point at 4.5. And a whole game difference like that is a huge thing. I think even there's one at 5 still available now. So um, that you're just hoping that you win 3 of your non-conference games, which is Eastern Kentucky, Toledo, and UMass, and hopefully you can get a win at Arizona State. Which, looking at that 18 months ago, that game was a lot more daunting than it is now. They had the NCAA stuff that a lot of people left. I still think they're I mean they're a Power Five team. Or is that they still Power Five? Yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah. And like you said, it's a what is that, 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock local kickoff time.
Yeah. Mhm.
Something crazy. We had the little scare when Arizona was bad at Arizona, played bad, most of the game and kind of got away with it at the end, kind of 2 or 3 score win. Um, and then you just got to find one of those at home and against the SEC, Florida, A&M, Arkansas, or Missouri. And then, the Egg Bowl is always a toss up no matter what, which I'm hoping by every dynasty that I have in my college football game that Ole Miss is what they are because they're terrible. I don't know if Jackson Dart gets hurt or what, but they're like 5-7 every dynasty that I have in the coming year. But yeah, I think you just I would give us 5 wins with maybe 6 is my kind of official prediction, I guess.
Which I think fans would be excited about going
Yeah,
forward, given the schedule that's put in front of them. Because man, it just
yeah.
is so difficult.
Which I think, let me look, because I do want to say this because I think this is a huge thing. I think if you're 5-7, but then you get beat by Texas 41-27, and then you go to Georgia and you can give up 65, I think, but it scored 35. Just show that you have some sort of pulse in those losses. And I think most fans, I know myself, would be happy. And then I say that, and I'm like, man, if we just didn't give up 60, we probably would have beat them. But right now, in my present state, I always have the right to change my opinion. But right now, I would be very happy with 5-7, maybe squeak out 6, and just have competitive losses where you light up the scoreboard.
And you're exactly right. It's the way you lose that
Hmm.
shows the morale, because every fan, and Zach Selman specifically, remembers what it was like being in Davis Wade last season playing LSU, to where I mean, the offense is not even competitive. The defense,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they have the Heisman Trophy winner and 3 first round draft picks on offense, but the defense was horrible. There was no pulse, like no fight. And so when you leave out of a game like that, well, as a fan base, man, you're like, I don't really know if I want to come sit out in the heat the next game
Yeah.
that's going to be here.
No.
But you're right. If
No.
there is some sort of sense of fight, and man, we're putting up points, uh, that's a completely different thing. I think that's I think Jeff Levy knows that he has some house money there to know, as long as we are competitive and we are coming out and we're still fighting, that the fan base is going to buy in for year 2. And also, same thing with recruits. Think about the recruits who are wondering if this offense is going to work. I think of the 5-star Caleb Cunningham, commits to Alabama, but to his credit, or to his understanding, like, Alabama's produced so many first round draft picks.
Hmm.
So it's not a hard argument at all to say, look, man,
No.
you don't even know if this thing's going to work. So a lot of advantages if you fight, just exactly as you said. And think about, how old are you?
27.
27. Okay, so you
Mhm.
got I got a year over you. So I'm 28. And I was thinking
You're
the other day,
old, dude.
dude, we're so old. And also depends on the company you keep, right? Like, I go to church, and we have some older folks, and they're like, "Man, you are so young." And then go hang out with college students, and they're like,
Mhm.
"Really?" And I was speaking at a camp last week, and they're 18-year-old, like, college kids who help it. And I said, "Yeah, I came here when I was a college student 10 years ago." And they didn't know I saw them, but they looked at each other and went, and I cried myself to sleep
Yeah.
later. But anyway, as you think about all the times you've seen as a Mississippi State fan, and I want to get your memories on this, but I'll share this first. I shared on another podcast this past week, but I was thinking about my first Mississippi State memory. And my parents owned a shop on Main Street in Starkville for a long time, almost 20 years. My grandparents owned another shop on Main Street for almost 20 years. And I can remember being a little kid in 2002, so seven years old or so, and our TV was kind of going in and out. But finally, it came back up. I knew Mississippi State was playing a game that day, and I didn't know who they were facing. And the Tennessee Volunteer, like as the TV went on, I could see it finally. Tennessee Volunteers were going in for a touchdown, and they made it 35-17 and won the game. And I remember looking at my dad and saying, "Why don't we go for a team that wins?" And that's how I was introduced to it, and that's how it's been since then, unfortunately. But can you think back in your life and think about your first Mississippi State memory? What was it?
So I'll give the bad one because there is a bad one that it really is my first memory, and then I'll give you the good one. But the first memory I have is the first game I ever went to. Don't ask me the year, I don't know it. We were playing LSU in Starkville, a day game. I remember going up, and it was just seeing the band, seeing college girls for the first time, and just being mesmerized by everything. And I was like, this is awesome. And just grew up a Mississippi State family. Always listened to Jack Crystal. I could tell you every baseball player and where they were from, and the start and basketball too. Didn't know what they looked like. We didn't. We had the old school 3 channels on TV, and didn't know what anything looked like. But had the radio and played LSU. And I think the opening kickoff they kind of fumbled it a little bit, and they had the ball like on their own 8 yard line. LSU did sacked him, made it like 2nd and 15 from the 5 yard line. Then I think we had a false start. Anyway, it ended up being like 3rd and 20 from the 3 yard line. And, it felt like there was 700,000 people in the stadium. It was loud. And then LSU threw a little screen pass and nobody touched him. And he went 98 yards for a touchdown. I think they ended up beating us like 50 something to nothing. So I just remember all of that hype and how awesome it was, and then just that first dagger of, well, this is what the rest of my life is like. But that's the first actual memory I have. The first good one is it took a couple of years, but the magical Sylvester Croom year of 2007, when I think we won 7 games. But if you would have asked me then, I thought we won 15. But the interception Anthony Johnson had against Alabama, running it back for a touchdown right before halftime, is the first good memory that I think I had.
And quite a memory coming from playing Alabama to think about that happened there. Man, what a far cry that's been, since
Yeah.
that time. And I believe Anthony Johnson, that's a name I hadn't thought about in years. Anthony Johnson
Mhm.
was him along with the starting offensive left tackle Michael Brown.
Mhm.
Dante Wesley or Brandon Wesley was the defensive tackle. But anyway, several of them got kicked off of the team for some sort of incident where a gun was
Yep.
involved. And Kroom he was such a disciplinarian. I feel
Mhm.
like Coach Kroom and Mike Leach would have gotten along. You think?
Yeah, they're made from the same cloth of just football guys that didn't take much, and so you respect it. But both in this day and age, you kind of, I mean, you see it with Kirby Smart, and you got to be better than Kirby Smart is on the disciplinary side, but you got to be kind of lenient as well. And no, but yeah, him and Leach would have been really, really good buddies.